Hey guys, I'm going to go over assignment 2. This is fire protection, where you guys will do a sprinkler layout. So this drawing will be new. You won't have this one started. So this isn't one that you guys would have for senior project. So you have to, I'll go through the steps on how you might want to add this one into your current drawing set. We're going to use NFPA 13 guidelines. So I've taken out some of the information. We're going to use that to lay out your sprinklers. And we're just going to do the heads within all the rooms you're building. This is a 1-week assignment. That's why the grade is a little bit less, right? So it's pretty easy drawing. It won't take you that long. You're going to submit a drawing in a PDF and an XREF when this is due. So let's go through the steps on how to do this, and then I'll demo how to do the CAD portion. So what you want to do first is you want to go onto Brightspace and get this drawing. This will have the sprinkler legend, which will have all the different pieces of the drawing itself. The legend looks something like this. All right, so it has the different types of sprinkler heads. There are a bunch of other pieces of equipment which we're not going to put in this drawing. Again, if you want to learn more about this, you could do this. We have a whole course on this in the 3rd year about fire protection. And make sure you grab the notes as well. All right, so you'll pull that into the new drawing. All right, so the first thing you want to do is to classify each of the rooms. And so NFPA has some classifications, so let's go through that. So occupancies or persons of occupancies shall be classified according to the quantity and combustibility of contents, the expected rates of heat release, the total potential for energy release, the heights of stockpiles, and the presence of flammable and combustible liquids. So with NFPA or the fire protection codes, they look at things as if it's going to catch fire, how quickly is it going to catch fire, right? You can imagine that the more something's going to catch fire, the more sprinkler protection you need. There's several classifications, so let's go through them. There's light hazard, spaces with low quantity and combustibility of contents. There's ordinary hazard, group 1, spaces with moderate quantity and low combustibility of contents or stockpiles of contents with low combustibility that do not exceed 8 feet. So if there's a shelving and it's a low combustibility like boots or shoes or something like that, high combustibility would be something like paper or alcohol, something that caught fire, it's going to burn really quick. Ordinary 2, space with moderate to high quantity and combustibility of contents, or stockpiles basically of high combustibility that exceed 12 feet. You'll see here there's a example of this like a department store. And then there's extra hazard. Now we're not really going to deal with extra hazard, where basically if you have a high dusty area or something like a spray booth or a distillery where they make alcohol, that would be a spot where it would be a group extra hazard. A light hazard group would be like a classroom, a washroom, a lunchroom, something like that. An ordinary hazard group 1, they classify that as like a mechanical room or an electrical room where you may need extra protection. And then if you have stockpiles where material that are above 12 feet, storage rooms, it would be an example, potentially storage rooms. If you have a retail spot and you're selling shoes, snowboard equipment, something like that, really that would be really the ordinary hazard, where it would be a lower level chance of those things to catch fire. And you could potentially even argue that down to a light hazard group. All right, so there may be a few questions about which type is which, and I'll try to cover in the example that I have how you might want to classify these. When using these design guides, right, there's some specifications that I want you to think about on how you set up your sprinklers in your room. So sprinklers shall be located a minimum of 4 inches or 100 millimeters from a wall, right? You don't want them too tight to a wall. If the sprinkler head opens, the water is going to spray onto a wall, and it's not going to get a very good pattern around the space underneath it. Here you can see this is a light hazard group, where you want basically when the sprinkler opens, that's going to get all the in a 15 square box around the sprinkler head. Sprinklers shall be spaced not less than 8 feet on center. So light hazard group, for example, it would be the most. And so you're going to see it's basically a 15-foot spread. Here you're going to have like, you're in a 15-foot box, you're going to have 2. And then if you had an extra hazard, which we shouldn't have any, you would have 4 in a 15-foot box. So 8 feet is the most. The maximum distance permitted between sprinklers shall be based on the center line. All right, so when you're measuring these distances, make sure you're using the center line of the sprinkler itself. And the distance from the wall to the sprinkler shall be measured perpendicular to the wall. Right, so it's just like the drawing showing. So it's from the edge of the wall to the center of the sprinkler, not say from a corner out. All right, so the next step, all right, is classifying the room. So I've got that set up in AutoCAD, and let's go through that right now. All right, so I've put together some labels here just so you can see. This might be worth doing for your guys' own building, just to label them. So if you make something called like sprink notes, all right, you can label the classification in each room. So the mechanical room, I've chosen ordinary hazard 1. Don't believe this is a stash washroom, actually. This is an electrical room. There's our staff room. So I think this is an electrical room. So this would be an example of ordinary hazard 1. Staff washroom, all right, would be considered a light hazard. A storage room. So this takes a little bit of interpretation. If your storage room, again, has storage room over 8 feet, and the material would be somewhat combustible, you may want to consider an ordinary hazard 2. I wanted to use an example of ordinary hazard 2 here, because now that I'm thinking about it, I do have their whole retail space as an ordinary hazard 2, but I'm going to change that to ordinary hazard 1. I haven't discussed fully with Dominique what her retail space is. I think it's a pet shop. So pet shop, you've got dog food or pet food, that sort of stuff. That's generally low combustible. Again, if you've got clothing, for example, like high polyester, cotton, that sort of thing, those things would tend to burn quite quickly. And if you've got, say, high shelving, like an Old Navy or something like that, or an American Eagle, something like that, that's usually over 12 feet. So you may want to consider this an ordinary hazard 2 group. Again, washrooms, offices would all be considered light hazard. Staff room would be light hazard. Again, the materials in those rooms are quite low combustible. And I think that's it. So I classify this entire space here as an ordinary hazard 1. All right, so let's go in and start thinking about what sprinklers to choose and how we want to consider that. So if we look at our sprinkler legend, we have several different options of sprinklers. And if you decide to go into fire protection, if that's something you're interested in, the building systems course gives you that opportunity if you would like, and there's a bunch of fire protection companies around. You can be quite specific on what type of sprinkler head you're going to use. For the case of this assignment, we're going to use 2 different ones. We're going to use what's called the quick response, which is a general type sprinkler, and we're going to use the quick response concealed pendant. This one is used for T-bar ceilings, and this one is used for open ceilings. All right, so what I've done here is I've just selected this, I've copied and pasted it, and I've put it on a sprinkler pipe. You can also just have an SPRK layer, and we're going to color code that red. All right, so I've already copied those 2, so I'm going to show you an example of how to lay out a room with these sprinkler heads. So the next step I would do is I would consider drawing a box around one of the sprinkler heads. So for the light hazard group, it's about 225 square feet. So that's a 15 by 15 box. And then the ordinary is about 130 square feet, which doesn't work out perfect. It's about 11.4-ish. So what I would do is you can just draw the box. If you want to keep the arrows in the middle, you can. Put it on a different layer. I call it like sprinkler box, as you want to freeze it, turn it off, you don't want it to print. This is also a great way for the instructor to check to make sure you've spaced them out correctly. If you just throw them in anywhere, it's not really that useful. This, you can apply skills and think about how you space them correctly. All right, so that's what I would do. The next step is we'll start putting these into rooms. All right, so let's look at some light hazard options, and then we'll get in maybe a little more complicated with the ordinary hazard. So light hazard, if you've got a small room, so this is the lunchroom, your sprinkler head might just fit perfectly in there. You may only need one. Now, again, you have to make sure that the sprinkler is not being obstructed by the lights. So if I put on my lights here, all right, so in this case, I am not. I also realize that this one is not this is for a T-bar ceiling. So I need to make sure that I go in and change that. So I'm just going to go and grab this one. All right. You have to make sure that, again, in the space, that if the box, so right now the box is on the outside of the walls, this room is perfectly covered by one sprinkler, right? There'll likely be some areas where we might run into troubles. This is another one. So here is a light fixture that's in the way, right? So this sprinkler is going to have to move ever so slightly. Now, if you look at the box, right, when I move these, I try to group them so that I can move them around a lot easier. This one technically is in the way of the light, so I have to move it over very slightly. Sprinklers can only go either, they generally go at the edge of a T-bar ceiling, all right, which is what I want to get at. So I'll show you here. If I have a T-bar, I don't want to put the sprinkler on the edge of where a T-bar is. What I want to make sure is that it is in the center of, say, this 2 foot by 2 foot tile. Now, what's nice here is this box has plenty of coverage, so I can kind of move this around. So if I move this pretty much dead center, that's what I'm looking for. And again, I've got lots of space here to cover it. So this, again, only needs one sprinkler to cover that. If I go over to, this is another light hazard. So this is the washroom. Again, I didn't group this one. You could make this into a block if you wanted to. It's another way to do it. But again, this one's, I put in the center room. I just kind of plunked it in. It is interfering with my light, so I want to make sure that I move that out of the way. So do take your time here. This is not a super hard assignment, all right? But you want to spend a minute just making sure that's okay. Now this is an open ceiling, so I can kind of put these wherever. I also realized, again, this one is not, maybe I'll pull this one out. That's not the one that I want. I want the upright, so I want this one. All right, so I bring that back in. This is an open ceiling, so I'm going to use the upright, and I can kind of put that wherever I want. There isn't really, other than your ventilation, sorry, that snapped. That's another thing. You got the upright might be easier to just move as is. So I need to move that around, and I'm just going to put that right here. So again, this one's perfectly covered. I don't really need to think about that one too much. Here's another one. This is a T-bar. This is the office. So let's go and put that one in. So that's a T-bar. So it's going to need one of these ones. Make sure I don't have anything selected. So again, this one is pretty good. Oh, no. So here you can see, if I put it here, so this is a good example. So right now, if you look at this, I'm competing with the light. So ideally, I could put it somewhere like here, but which would pretty much cover the wall. However, I can't do that because I've got this T-bar lay-in. So what I'm going to need to do is this one's going to require 2 sprinklers in this room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to center it. And again, this is going to be approximate. I'm going to put one here, right? And you can see here, this wall is not covered. So I need a second one to come into that space. So everything has to be covered up. And so if I put it here, for example, in that tile, I'm not going to get the wall. I want to make sure that I cover everything. And ideally, that would be located, again, around the center of the tile. In a 2x2, you can put it in a, if this was cut in half, in the center of half of a tile, you don't have to put it directly in the center of a 2x4 foot, but in the middle is where you want to get it. All right, so now I have coverage, right? I can cover this whole room. So that took 2 sprinklers. I think that covers all my light hazards. And now I have ordinary hazard 1s, ordinary hazard 2s, right? So let's look at those. So we're going to use the smaller box. So here I have a T-bar, and then this is all open ceiling. So for my, start with this one, we'll do a T-bar ceiling first. Make sure I'm not selecting anything. Right, so again, you can see here, this is T-bar. I put this in the middle of a ceiling tile. I'm not getting that right-hand wall, so I'm going to need 2 of these sprinklers. Sprinkler heads. Just a couple of reminders again with the instructions. Again, they have to be a minimum of 4 inches from the wall. Space not less than 8 feet on centers. Distance from the wall. As I'm doing this, I'm doing this in my head, but I should really go back to the instructions and remind you guys. This is probably again your first time doing this. 4 inches from a wall is pretty tight. Here this is a 2 foot by 2 foot, so we're about 1.5 feet from a wall. 4 inches is very close. You can see here the box method is quite advantageous because I can see clearly where these are going. So, all right, so let's continue on here. We're going to do the ordinary hazard 2. We're going to do this back office, not really back office, storage space. So we have a T-bar lay-in, and so we're going to use this pendant style one that we can start spacing these out. Even though the box might be appropriate, we have to make sure again that we have kind of 8 foot spacing. So we'll start at the top. So we'll put in pendant there. Something also to students kind of mess this up sometimes is that my box looks like it can enter this room. However, it cannot. Okay, so whenever you have a sprinkler, and it can only go as far as the wall, right? So that's as far as it can go. So the next one that we can put in here, say, is we need to put 8 feet, right? So about 96-inch spacing. So let's put in our next box. Guess we can paste it. Yeah, okay, we can. I just want to grip that in the center. And we'll put the snap back on. There we go. So as we move down here, again, we got great coverage. We have to keep making sure that we have the this 8-foot spacing. And these boxes are going to start being really annoying. They're going to start taking up a lot of space. So just make sure that you know, you take your time, go through all this. Now again, you could, that's pretty damn close. We could approximate it in the center. That's probably good enough. Again, I'm just going to delete this line as I go. So just take a look around, make sure you're getting proper spacing. We're going to have to put in another set here because we're not getting this wall. It looks like we might get away with just one more, but we might need two. Oh, it looks like we're good. Right, so those are perfectly good in a row. All right, and then we just need to cover this area. So what I would do is just, we'll draw another line across, make sure we're within that 8-foot spacing. But this ceiling tile's nicely set up, so we can take that. Yeah, so it looks like 96 would be to the wall, so we're good. So all I need to do is just make sure that we are pretty much in line. Now, in a full CAD drawing, what I guess I'm saying is you can take your time, make sure everything's nice and straight with the sprinklers. I usually do that at the very end. We just make sure that they're all nice and lined up. And I think that is our last one that we'll need to put in. So again, these are less than 8 feet apart. We have our 8-foot here, and everything here is now covered in our ordinary hazard. So that is all set. The next one I'm going to do is this big room, the ordinary hazard 1. I'm just going to pause the video because it does take a little bit of time. Something that I would consider you guys trying is you can use the array command, right? Rectangular array, right? And I'll show you at the end what that looks like. All right, so I've drawn the array. This is what it looks like. Something I did is I started 3.5 feet from the wall. Right, it actually looked like I could probably back this up a little bit on this one side. So it just came out, say, 36 inches, 3 feet. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, it looked bigger than it was. And then you use the array command to just kind of set these up. Now it looks crazy, especially with the sprink box on. When you overlap, when you use the array command, the downside is it will overlap things. What's kind of neat is if you hit control, you can isolate certain areas where you want to delete out, say this one in here. If I delete this, because this sprinkler is affecting this room, so that one, I can delete that and it'll go away. Now the only downside is it does open up a space here, so I'm gonna have to work with that one. So it looks like I have a double up. This one and this one I got a double up. This one I've got a bit of a double up. So I've ran